to Navigating Neva, and I am Neva Nicole, your host with my co-host.
Wes King.
And today's episode is extra special. We are heading across the pond to talk to a beautiful guest that's with us today. Her name is Helen Hughes. She's the founder of Mini Water Adventures and the creator of the Orca Trainer, the author of several Learn to Swim books, and Helen brings beautiful, imaginative, and child-centered approaches to swim lessons that we're really excited to share with our audience today.
Spot on, Nicole. One of the great things about Helen is the play mindset, the play component, the purposeful play and skill building, especially for little ones. Helen and I have chatted for almost a year now, gotten to know her, and her approach to the education side of it is just really unique. A lot of times in the United States, and even in our podcast, we've talked about the certifications of WSI and YMCA instructor, and I think Helen has an understanding of those, but really what she brings is a unique aspect to incorporation of play and play activity. So excited to get into it.
Yes, Helen, welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I love talking about this, so thanks very much.
Oh, the accent. I'm sorry, audience, enjoy the accent. We're excited.
Uh,
This is great.
It is
I,
true. That's one of our
I
perks when we get to play with
Right?
people outside of the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
is. I
on
don't normally feel that. I mean, I feel a bit croaky at the moment, so I apologise for the strange voice. I don't normally sound like this, but certainly very much British.
Yes,
That's
yes.
awesome.
Well, so speaking of big things, Helen is going to be one of our featured sponsors for our All Things Aquatic event. And our All Things Aquatic event is happening on September 20th. And while she can't be here with us in person, we are going to represent her mini water adventures, and she will be there, not physically on that day with us. And then we're also teaming up with Helen to host a training in South Florida. So if you guys are in this side of the United States or down in Florida, definitely follow or reach out and ask questions. We're going to be, I'm pretty sure I can say it now, but we're going to be at the Treasure Coast YMCA, which is 100 miles north of Miami. It's very close to Orlando, Daytona. If you're in Tampa, you can come across. And of course, I'm driving down 5 hours from Georgia. So you guys should mark your calendar and save the date if you want to see both of us there. Well, that brings us to our interview with Helen. So, we'd love for you to share your story, but what inspired you to create the mini Orca Trainer? And before you say more, let me share our screen because I've got your page up and our audience can see it.
And MINI, just for, and because I have an accent too. So the mini MINI also helps us immediately think of the size and scope of it, not mini MANY. Just think of the space and time of the MINI, mini mouse, right? So now we can automatically think of the
Oh,
structure and play and time and all the fun things.
oh, thank you. Yeah, so my company is Mini Water Adventurers, and I created the Orca Swim Trainer as well. So the story between with Mini Water Adventurers, I've been a swimming teacher for over 30 years now. And I was working for leisure centres and things in my early teaching days, if you like. And then fast forward, because it's a very long story, because obviously I'm very old, so I have quite a long story. But shortening it is that I ended up going to Florida. And I lived there for 10 years. And in those 10 years, I set up my own swim school. And it came about chance, really. I didn't go over there to set up my swim school, but funnily enough, someone overheard I was working real estate at the time, and somebody in the office actually overheard that I taught swimming. And he basically asked, could I teach his grandchildren to swim? And I said, absolutely. And it pretty much started and it just boomed. And I think everybody loved having a British swimming teacher, so that certainly did help. But I think that I had a little bit of a different approach, and that has actually developed a lot over the years since then. And I was Helen's Fishes Club back in the day,
Oh,
and yeah, and then we were Little Fish, Big Fish. And then we actually then rebranded to then become Mini Water Adventurers. And the reason why I called it that is because it's the nature of the beast, I guess. I feel as though every lesson with children is going to be a water adventure.
Oh.
That's why this play approach comes into it, because I feel as though transforming their lessons in a way of where they learn more effectively. And over the years, I found that it works so well. So that's why the name came up. And then the reason why I chose to do the Orca Swim Trainer is that I used a very similar system. Well, it wasn't too similar, but something. I used an aid in Florida, and I found that it was working because I found that the kids were really struggling in the water, and I wanted to give them a helping hand. And the way I don't use it all the time, but I use it to give them a little bit of a boost in the water. So when I moved back to the UK and I was wanting to set up my swim school again, I was then wanting to use something as a layer of protection, but also to give that extra guidance and support for the children as well. Well, anyway, I couldn't find anything that was suitable for me. I'm a sports scientist, and anything that I
Ah.
could see just didn't make sense for the water. Anything around the arms, anything just on the back,
Hmm.
to me, physiologically didn't make any sense. So that's why I then decided to do my own. And
Yeah.
that's why I thought, right, no one else is going to do it. I have to do it. And so I just spent the time. So I've ended up finding a manufacturing company, and it just went from there. And in 2019, we had our first orcas produced, and we had many hundreds of swimmers test it and trial it with my swim school. And then it went 2020, unfortunately, COVID hit.
Yeah. So we
And
heard.
yes, just a little
Yep.
thing going on here in the world, very small, of course. Uh,
Right.
so it sort of had a little bit of a pause in the business, but now it's on the forefront, and I'm hoping to promote it because it works so well for children. Now, there are so many myths about flotation devices,
Hmm.
and I know in the US and particularly also Australia, and more, I guess, so here as well, that we feel as though we shouldn't be using them. However, I believe that there is a place for them. However, they need to be used correctly.
Yeah.
And when I say correctly, I mean that they're not just relied on as part of your training tools, but you're using it just like you would do, say, you're working in a gym, or you're working, I don't know, you're doing any type of sport. We use additional resources and additional equipment to help with the development and the progression of, our children. And unfortunately, in the swimming world, we seem to think that that's something that we shouldn't be using, and whereas I think that it should. So, and I've got proof because it does work.
Sure.
Um,
That was
very proud.
phenomenal. Yeah. And two real quick things. One, I know we want to mention this earlier too, just to double down on it. For those of you listening, we're going to have Helen back, and we're going to do a lot of deep diving on some of this information from the program itself, from the Orca tool. But I want to go back real quick because my heart sung. My Grinch's heart grew 3 sizes when you referenced each lesson is an adventure. When you hit that point, my heart sung. My wife is a full-time swim instructor. I know every swim instructor that I've ever met believes that in their heart, that when I get in that water and my kid smiles, I'm gonna. Now, how we live it and breathe it is a different story. And I just love that your initial grounding point was, how do we make every time we're in the water a poignant adventure, a purposeful activity. Anyway, I just wanted to hit that home because that really meant a lot to me and getting to know you as well. But for our audience, I hope that hit home for them as well, because I know our listeners do that when they teach. Absolutely. So, yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead, Nicole. Sorry.
So, our question here is, how does the culture around swim lessons differ from the UK to the United States? And I feel like
Yeah.
you would be our best guest to answer this, just because you've been in both, and you've been in the aquatic field in both. And I don't think many of our listeners know about. I have the privilege of knowing about it, and I know some other people do because they'll do digging on their own and they'll go around. But I worked with an aquatic tutor from the UK, and it's vastly different between the two cultures and how we approach swimming. So what can you tell
Yeah.
us?
Yeah, sure. Um, well, first thing that I did really notice coming back from living in Florida is that children seem to be a lot more confident. and they tend to be quite
Mm.
more independent. And I noticed that massively when I first came back.
That
The
could be
British,
parenting style problems in America, by the way. As a parent with parenting problem styles, that could just be how we teach our kids to think they know everything. Sorry, go ahead. I digress.
well, some people could say it was obnoxious, but you know, for the most part, it's
I'm trying to own it. That's all. Yeah.
I would say confidence.
Fair, fair.
Uh, um, so that really hit home, really. But if you're talking about it generically, we here in the UK, we tend to do very much stroke focus,
Mm.
and we tend to focus more on obviously all four strokes. And that is the guidance with the rewards and the stage process that we offer with regards to Swim England and the STA. I know STA tends to be a little bit more global, but they are very much a tick the box. You're doing this throughout the lesson, and well done you, you're now moving up, and so forth. So it's very descriptive. And they tend to focus on technique as opposed to context, and they will limit about decision making. So therefore, it's very much teacher led. The teachers are instructors, and they are the ones that are telling the children what to do. Therefore, it's very prescriptive, and also it's a strict curriculum. So teachers
Mm.
tend to have to stick to it. Otherwise, their supervisors or managers, what have you, they pretty much come down on you if you're not doing it to how they see that it should be conducted. And therefore, I think it's very inflexible, which is a shame
It's a
because
good way of saying it, though. It's a really productive way of delivering that message because I think it sometimes people say it a little harsher another way. So kudos to you because I think it's a easy way to understand it. Sorry, keep going. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think for new swimming teachers that are coming through, they think that that's the only way. So therefore, it's that prescriptive approach to them they tend to stick to, and then they don't tend to venture out to try and find other alternatives because they think that's the way. Whereas from my understanding and experience within Florida and also researching in America, is that they tend to be very much the survival and the flip and float technique of where it's the is it ISR?
ISR. Mm-hmm.
And it's excruciatingly painful to hear and watch. And I knew from that day of where I heard a swimming teacher, because I was an aquatics director in a very large sport complex in my local town. And I had to share the pool space with this other lady. And it was terrifying. And I hadn't seen any of that before. I hadn't heard of it. And I certainly hadn't seen it. I'd seen like videos, on YouTube. In fact, YouTube back then wasn't really the thing. I mean, we're talking nearly 20 years ago. So
Great reference.
starting to, these type of things were starting to come out. Facebook was fresh. So these videos were starting to circulate. And I thought, whoa, that is odd. And to me, I wasn't even a mum at that time either. My heart just sunk, and it was horrendous. And I was thinking, oh no, this is what is the norm here.
Welcome to
And
the United States.
I know, and I said, no, I'm not doing it that way. And I tried to find other ways of where I could combine my understanding. I was a teacher, I was a competitive swimmer myself, so I had a coaching background as well. And also I am a qualified teacher in schools as well. So I was thinking that I've got to be able to bring all of this together. And that's why also having the experience of teaching in the UK, then this, I was thinking something different has got to be offered.
Yeah.
So that's why. So in a nutshell, that is the difference.
I think that was a great question, Nicole, because if you're listening and you're an ISR instructor, please know that's just an observation from somebody who has not heard a screaming child at 6 months old in the water. So God bless someone for that. But also, that's what happens when you're first through the wall. You've got to work through those kinks, and not knocking any program or promoting any program, but please don't be offended if you're one of those instructors. But I think the other thing you picked up there, Helen, too, and I know, Nicole, we've talked about this, is just the formality of it, is how many options there are. How does the instructor become better? And to your point, how do you create that environment, Helen? How do you relate your child engaged games to create an emotional and safe and physical safe environment for an instructor or a client who maybe is used to this structure, used to these check boxes? How have you gone about working with the staff and the program to kind of cross over or make it less checkboxy?
Yeah. So first and foremost is that we need to look at it in a different lens, in the sense that the child comes first. They are priority. We are in service to them, and it's our job for us to provide them the environment and the space to be able to feel free, and also have a trusted relationship with you as that person. Once you have that, then you will be able to, the lesson can be, as it can be whatever
Adventurous.
you want it to be. Yeah, and adventurous, exactly. And I fit the activities to them, as opposed to them having to fit to what we want them to do. Ultimately, of course, you have a goal in mind of what you're wanting them to achieve, but there is different ways that you can do that. And if you look at child development, if you look at progressive approaches to education, I hope most people have heard of Montessori, but there's also
Hmm.
Rudolf Steiner, there's also Reggio Emilio, there's also other philosophers and other speakers now that are coming through to say, hey, this old-fashioned approach just doesn't work anymore. And it shouldn't work either. We're working with young children. Their imagination is amazing. They
Mm.
are their souls are beautiful. And I love working with them because at the end of the day, they create that fun. And I think that playfulness is taken out of us as an adult. And I don't think there are many adults know how to be playful anymore, which is why doing that prescriptive approach is easier for
Mhm.
people,
Sure.
because they can then go into a lesson, they do it, and then they go home. Whereas
Absolutely.
I see it as being more to it than that, than just
Yeah.
turning up,
As
teaching, going
as a
home.
as a teaser, sorry, as a teaser for when we get to this more specifics, I know in your workbooks and your training manuals, you have animals and you have toys and you have all different layers. So, anyway, so the audience, hang with us for the next month and we get to Helen and have more discussion because there's some great, real specific analogies that you have in your program that helps create that play. Anyway, sorry. Yes, Nicole. Sorry. I'm so
So,
excited.
yeah, absolutely. So, Helen, I loved what you shared. Going off of that, I jotted down some notes because they just kept popping up. But I wanted to reiterate just to my audience and piggyback off what Helen said. Sometimes we have brand new instructors listening. Sometimes we have parents listening because they're trying to teach their children to swim. Sometimes we have directors or CEOs that don't know much about the aquatic world and they're listening in. But I think Helen made a really good point, and she said that the goal, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said the goal was the child, right?
Absolutely. Number one,
Yes. Keep
forefront.
So,
going.
so I have notes. So, what I wanted to say to everybody, whoever's listening, is you should always ask. One, your instructor should tell you. I teach a parent-child class, and it's a group of a mom and tots, and they're together, or not moms, but parents, caregivers, whoever comes. We've had more dads recently, which I love, but just I like to see them involved. Um, I say on the first day or every day when we learn something, what our goal is. And if you guys are taking lessons, I think the biggest
Hmm.
miscommunication in America is there's such a vast majority of people offering classes that you really need to make sure what you're getting lines up with your goals. Is the goal you or is the goal your child? And if the goal
Hmm.
is your child, what is the goal? And that would be the most important thing when you're seeking out your swim lessons. And Helen said that.
Yeah.
The other
Is it
thing,
actual swimming? Sorry, is the goal swimming? Is the goal water safety? Is the goal be specific? Ask your instructor, ask your organization, ask the leader of the deck. What's the goal today? Etc. Keep going, Nicole.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, the other thing that I wanted to say is a lot of what you mentioned reminds me of old school aquatics in America. And what I mean by that is way back when it was, I don't even know, everybody can correct me again. This is my introduction to let you know we have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram.
Yeah.
Flood us with your complaints and stories when you don't like what I said. But years ago, lots of schools or more schools had swimming as part of their curriculum. I know
Hmm.
Philadelphia and New York, it was a PE class. And in those notions, I think it's more like across the pond where it's stroke development. And with that, we've gotten away from that and kind of created new things like our drowning prevention and just different things. But again, for everybody listening, in America, we have the YMCA and the USA, YMCA of the USA and American Red Cross, and those are for kids 4 and 5 and then up. And we are focused on stroke development there, but where I am, and I'm not even in Florida, more than 50% of our clientele are little ones. So when you're
Yep.
training your staff and they're getting this, they don't even know what to do with the littles because they're not covering that
Hmm.
in their training. And I found Helen because once you're trained and you want to dig deeper and it's your job and you want to do good at your job, you're trying to find things to make your class better, or you got tired of teaching the same thing for the last 2, 3, 5 years and you're trying to get more. And that's how I found Helen. Um, and that's, I mean, that's, I think, I feel like that's how she exists. So if you're listening, her stuff can accompany, enhance
Hmm.
your programs, but she's also teaching on an aspect that we don't really get when we're certified and trained. So that brings me to my next question, though. You use a lot of games and support, and does it support the emotional safety and physical skills of the children? And if it is, what age group are those children?
So I use a purposeful, playful approach. So for me, it's actually
Tagline.
tagline purposeful play, and I do have a definition, but that will be for our next time. But so so it doesn't really hone into any specific ages, but there is a range. So primarily from toddlers age, then up to preschoolers, but I call them young beginners, so around
Great
four
phrase.
4 years old. So sorry, 4 to 6. So toddlers up. And babies can, but it's just that's a different entity. So we're talking about how to teach them the combination of the all important strokes, the swimming, but then ultimately it's been using play to be able to then understand the water and how we can recreate this every day, when we go into the beach or when we go to the lakes or things like that. We're trying to recreate it so that they become, so this is where the water safety then comes into it. So I'm trying to say without having to go into too much detail, but the whole point of it is that this play enables the environment for these young children to be emotionally safe, so that if they are scared or if they have come of where they are feeling anxious, they're unsure, they are or you could have the other end of the spectrum as well. They could be extremely confident, they are
Hmm.
low, they have no respect for the water yet. This is where the different types of play. Now, I go through 8 types of play where it actually goes from babies up to these young beginners. And then the older ones actually go into gamification. So it goes a little bit,
Hmm.
it changes a little bit. But basically, it helps with specific learning objectives that you're talking about. What is the point of the lesson, as well as skill development, but their personal growth as well. And you're going to have so many different swimmers walk through your door that's why play helps, because they understand it. And if you understand it as a teacher and why it can be used to your benefit, that means that the children can relax, they can enjoy themselves in the water, and then you don't have to fight with them. A lot of swimming teachers struggle thinking that they are using they have bad behavior, or they're being naughty, or they're just not listening to you. Where it's not the case, there is always an underlying reasoning behind that. I always say
Hmm.
there's always a reason behind their behavior. And that's why play really works so well in the aquatic world. Obviously, it proves that it does on land.
Hmm.
And I go on a lot of play summits. I go on a lot of early years summits to watch what we do on land. And then I basically repurpose it and tweak it for the water, because ultimately children are children. Their brains are their brains. And it's as simple as that, is that that's what we need to be focusing on, not necessarily how perfectly they can do breaststroke or how perfectly they can do a butterfly technique. It's you know, if you ask a parent, why are you putting children into swimming lessons? Their answer is always, I want them to be safe in water. It's not that I want them to perfect their breaststroke, or I want to,
Ha!
you know, it's
Yeah,
not the case. It's
that is a rare crowd. What I
exactly.
love hearing about that is, and again, we in America we hear it all the time. They're in group lessons. My child didn't get a turn. How can they learn if he's only going or she's only going every few minutes? What I love about your curriculum and your program is this is not about turns. It's not about skill level for the moment. What a you young beginner. That phrase has never been stated in this country. We're either beginners, we're either young, we're either new, we're level one. A young beginner automatically changes the mindset of the participant, but also we're not talking about is it my turn now? Is it your turn? The whole curriculum is designed to create an experience for all the participants collectively. So as a parent, I don't have to wonder, is Johnny going to get his turn? Did he get his 3 minutes? Because the whole setup is designed to be a universal support. And I just think that's a great approach because it also allows the parent to understand what's happening with those goals and those expectations. So I think those are really good components.
Yeah. Can I say that if you are familiar with Montessori, basically she brings in Maria Montessori, she brings in about the environment, and that
Mhm.
your environment, what you use, will help you with guiding the way that your lessons go. And that's why I've really taken and immersed and embraced that by using materials. Now she uses manipulatives, whereas I use materials, toys, I guess, or equipment, but I call them materials because that's where that purposefulness comes into it, is that there is a reason behind what I use
Yes.
in the water. And also, that it's not just a case of, well, she's talking about play and, oh, she's got loads of these toys in the pool.
Hmm.
It's not that, is that there is a reason what I'm using. And also it enhances their learning opportunities. So when you're talking about having not waiting their turn, this is where the orca comes into it as well. They are all moving the whole lesson. The only time when they will take their orcas off initially will be when they're doing their safety skills at the end of the lesson.
There we
And
go.
that's when we do the jumps and then the independent swims at the end without it on. And as they get older and more proficient with it, the less they wear it. So therefore, they're combining their skill sets with their also building up of their strength and their confidence. But there is no time in my curriculum of where a child is waiting their turn. If they are having to wait their turn, which is because I'm wanting to work on a little bit of independence with them, there is always something for them to do at the side of the pool space. So if we're working on the stairs, then they will be practicing dive downs, or they'll be
Yes.
practicing breath control, or they'll be sitting and there may be some type of playful element or material there that they will be focusing on. And then I will specify to certain areas where you cannot come past
Sure.
this point for safety issues, because I am going to be working with little Johnny as I'm doing it. So
Those boundaries and rules.
Yeah.
absolutely, boundaries and rules. Yep.
See where there's little similarities. We got those in the States too, right?
Some
Yeah.
people.
Some states.
I
Yeah.
wanted to ask a question about your Orca trainer, just because we don't know about it, and in here we're famous for puddle jumpers. So
Float
before,
belts and puddle jumpers. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So if
Or $1 arm wings.
right,
Both.
I hate that. Those are way worse. So your Orca trainer. My question for you is the Orca trainer here. Um, if I'm a mom and I have, several kids under the age of 5, I feel safe if I put them in. I don't have one, but if you put them in a puddle jumper, if I didn't want to do the puddle jumper and I put them in an Orca trainer, is that something that I could do as a mom in the pool with my other kids? Or when would I use this? Is it for swim instructors? Can parents get it? What would you say?
Yeah, for both parents and swimming teachers. The difference, how I see a puddle jumper is it's not just armbands with a strap. And it's not effective at all. But then, like you said, the parents don't understand. It's from us. We have to educate these parents and tell them because they see all these wonderful marketing. Um, promotions on Facebook, and now we're seeing so many different things coming up on TikTok and all these random companies that have no background of the aquatic environment or swimming or the physiological side or no, they know nothing. And and who's to say that what they are selling is the correct one? Well, the difference with the orca is that parents use it and swimming teachers use it. The parents use it to be able to add on from what or practicing from what they've learned in their swimming lessons, and that's so important. And I really now go into it of that we need to partner with the parents because I don't think enough is done with regards to speaking to them and giving them the information. Too much has happened in the sense that they pass them on to us for us to drown proof these children, and it's not fair to do that. Or they are leaving the child and it's their responsibility to save themselves, and that shouldn't be the case. So that's why the orca is used for both, because it's a combined entity. It's a combined relationship of where the swimming teacher uses it as a tool, and then the parents are using it to practice and using it. So it's not a life jacket.
Right.
Literally is a teaching tool, and that's how it should be used. Whereas with these puddle jumpers, they tend to just snap them in and then they think, oh, now I can sit back and relax.
It,
It's not, and it should
yes.
not
Go ahead,
happen.
Nicole.
No, I
I
was
have
just
a
giving
thought
you
about yeah,
credit.
yeah.
That I feel like it's a lack of proper education, whether you want to blame it coming from swim instructors or just our culture. They put them in a puddle jumper and they walk away, which if your child can't swim and they can't stand, you should never be more than arm's length away. The puddle jumper shouldn't be an excuse for you to throw your kid in the water and go do laundry and finish your homework online. But your
It
kid,
makes you own it. The
it's
orca makes you own, and we talked about this at the beginning, and we've talked about this in all our podcasts, and that's why we're doing this, Nicole and Helen, is the putting your orca on the child is just to me like having a water watcher. When you put your orca on your child, you are not releasing them into the lake while you float on your boat. You're actively engaging with them as a parent,
Yeah.
playing with them, teaching them, and then when you take the orca off of them, put the life jacket back on them, right? It's to and so I love the clarification, and you're absolutely right, Nicole. We as humans in this country, very stereotypically and very generally, please don't send your letters to me. We see everything the same. We see all the jackets the same, all the puddles. And what I love about this is not the same. And Helen, you so articulated the specific is why this isn't a puddle jumper, and it shouldn't be, but it's also not a life jacket. It's an active involvement. So if you're owning your child's water safety, use it with an orca because it keeps you connected with the child because it's on them and you're using it with them. Anyway, I love the way you described it.
Thank you. Yeah. No,
Sorry,
and
Nicole.
no, go. I could
so
talk about it all day, so go for it.
can you see the screen? You've got four little happy kids and their orca trainers. So
Yeah.
yeah.
How
So
There
I
you
mean
go.
they're getting confident. So I noticed if I go back a page, this is for my YouTube people. You have teachers, you have parents, and you have teachers. And I just had the question on social media, how do you feel about bubbles? Do you know about the bubbles? Have you ever seen the bubbles in use that some facilities will put on like a belt and then the kid has like a bubble on their back? I mean, some literally are a bubble, like a marshmallow bubble, and some are 3 layers, but it's not a water aerobics bubble, and they're putting them on younger kids. My question is, I don't know if you're familiar with those. Have you seen those?
Well, I mean, I'm familiar with back floats. There was something similar called the Turtle Pack, but it's no longer here now.
Yeah, yeah.
Something
There's a big
similar to
company in the United
that.
States that used to have something like that.
So if we were a teacher and our
Yeah.
facility is currently using these bubbles, it looks like your orca trainer would be better than our bubbles. No?
Oh,
Yeah?
yes. And there, um, So here we use armbands, if you can believe, still. And in fact, they've upgraded now to arm discs. So
Oh,
I know
frightening.
it's interesting. Well done them for upgrading.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's the similar sort of thing, is that you're using back floats, we're using arm rings. And if you understand anything about swimming, we need to, or even the body, we need to work antagonistically, which means you're working opposite all the time. So you can't just have something on the back and you can't have something just on the front. And if you have anything around the arms, then you're just restricting any type of movement, and they literally just stay in an upright position because they're just bobbing along and they don't have to do much. Whereas and another thing about back floats is that for those that wear high heels, you can understand the pain that you are in, because your body is fighting to be actually is actually forced forward in your body, but then your muscles and everything is trying to then push you back into equilibrium.
Thank you
So
for understanding my pain that I go through on the weekends. I
I
appreciate it.
did think I did think of you when I was
I
talking about
appreciate that. Yeah.
and very high ones at that.
Indeed.
But then effectively that's what the back float does, is that it pulls and pushes wrong, which is actually really bad for the neck, because I call it the turtleneck, is where the child is feeling, so they're forced forwards, the
Hmm.
neck then just comes up. So that's why the bubbles or whatever it is, and if you're putting even more and more and more on their backs, it's even worse. I mean, effectively, you think that you're pulling them up against the water, but buoyancy doesn't work that way, and our bodies certainly don't work that way either. So the difference for teachers is that this is progressive. So there are
Mm.
9 floats in there, of where there's 4 in the front and 5 in the back. So yes, slightly more in the back, but not enough to really pull them, because you've got them in the front. So as they become as they become proficient in the water, so they're actually getting from A to B really easily, you then start taking what I call the float pads out, which then drops them in the water incrementally. So over time, that they're actually building their strength and confidence, rather than all or nothing approach. So effectively, once they are all out of what I call the graduation system, the child is already learnt to swim in the correct position effectively in the water. And
Beautiful.
you can actually see it happening
Hmm.
when the kids first start wearing it. Yes, they are in more of an upright position, because naturally they have learnt to walk, they're running, they're cycling. So they will do that automatic natural movement
Hmm.
first, until we can then use our materials and our skill sets to bring them forward, which then their legs will come up behind them, but it happens incrementally and progressively rather than pushing them to do it. They learn through body awareness, and they will learn from exploring and experimenting. And this is why the Orca works perfectly, because they have the time and space to be able to do it, rather than having to think constantly, I am drowning.
Mm.
Emotional side of it, of they're not stressed, they are not having to constantly think about all these different things, they are focusing on one thing at a time, and the Orca provides them that space to do that. If they want to flip to their front to their back, they can do. If they've just decided, like toddlers, will just fly by the seat of the pants, one moment they want to be on the front, next minute they want to be on their backs. And they can do that. You can use them with noodles, like I do use
Yeah.
noodles quite a lot, and I use connectors, because again, that gives them that the autonomy, the independence, but also gives them that the sensory input of where they can relax as they're learning. And that's so important. A child has to be relaxed and trust you as a teacher. Otherwise, you can't, you won't, nothing. It will be such an ineffective. They will just learn to be submissive. And that's what
You,
just don't want a child to do that.
you took the words right out of my mouth. Is whether it's the Orca, whether it's the play activity, whether it's the mindset, it's all surrounding, it's about the child. And
Yeah.
that's what every instructor wants. They want the child to get to a place where they can learn, progress, right? Whether it's breathing, arm strokes, floating. I think you did a great job of establishing that the Orca is progression, but so is teaching. And for the listeners of this podcast, where a lot of you are instructors and educators, and tell your friends about it. so that they can understand too that that's what swimming is. And as a teacher, if you can get your child comfortable, you can get your child listening and not screaming and understand it, then you can have a great swim lesson. So this has just been phenomenal. And we really appreciate hearing all of the aspects to this, and not just the top line stuff, getting into some depths of the Orca, the curriculum, and very much look forward to having more of these conversations where we can articulate and define some of the components of the program for sure.
So as we wrap up, I've got one more question for Helen. She has built a pretty big community around the world, and if you guys don't know who she is, she's on Facebook. Are you just on Facebook? Do you have other social
Yeah,
media?
primarily Facebook, just because I'm old-fashioned. So Instagram for me is just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
use Facebook. I am on Instagram.
Okay. So
But
she's on Facebook, and she also has a website, of course, that we're looking at now. But you've built community educators around the world, because I'm in the United States and here we are. What is your bigger vision for swim instructors to evolve globally?
wow. Well, I basically set it up because I thought I was bored over COVID. I was just like, do you know what? I've got so much time on my hand, and I've also got so much knowledge in my head. Why didn't I just start putting pen to paper? And that's why swim education came about. And swim is actually an acronym, and it's a framework that I did create. It's called the Play, Learn, Swim framework. And basically, over the years, it's evolved into a creative space of where we bring, I think I've got nearly 5,000 teachers on there now from all the way, all over the
Yeah.
world. And they literally come to the page, or I allow those in to the page of where they're wanting to, they purposely want to come to the page to be creative in their lessons and think of different ways of offering a different way of teaching swimming to children. And also it's for us as teachers to have be fun. And that's a way of holding on to swimming teachers. So if you own your own swim school, if you provide this wonderful place for them to work and to teach, and the children love to do it, then that's how we keep hold of our teachers, but then also our swimmers. And if the parents are on the same page as us, then that's just amazing too. So really the swim education page, I'm trying to change the paradigm and just, I don't know, just be a little bit different. Is that there's a different approach to what we're doing, and it might not be for you, and so therefore, you can come off the page and go and find something else that is for you. But life is too short, and I just, why don't we have some fun? I mean, swimming ultimately should be fun. Yes, they're learning a life skill. Yes, they need to know water safety, and it needs to be a serious talk as well. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, if a child is enjoying themselves, then they will learn those essential skills, and they will learn to be safe in the water. And you don't have to do it in such a hard and strict way of doing it. And that's what the swim education page is all about, is to have a safe place of where, if you are trying different ways, let's help each other out, because there's
Yeah.
loads of times that I've tried different things and they haven't worked, which is fine. The children are safe.
You're right.
But why not try something different? If you know that, like for instance, recently been working with a 4-year-old, and she's just not putting her face in the water. She just doesn't want to do it. And and if you know what I've been talking about today, I have a lot of tricks up my sleeve to
Yeah.
get
Right.
these children to do, essentially put their faces down in the water. Um, and I just couldn't, it just baffled me. So I started researching. Every day is a learning day. And even though you've been doing this, I've been doing this for a very long time, there are still things that we need to learn about. And I obviously missed a trick, and now I know what it is. And it's working really well. And I think that's what the page is there for as well,
Mhm.
is to share ideas and to come together as a community. And I think that's lost. We tend to work against each other rather than working with. And if you guys are listening to this, these drowning rates need to go. They
You see
need.
why we have Helen as part of our event now, but that's to collaborate. And the swim education page, I can attest that I don't actually actively teach now, but my clients do. My wife does. It is a great resource of information and a lot of very clear planning. When you go on that swim education page, it's a very clean presentation of how to teach it and what to teach, and there's a lot of great information there. But to your point, Helen, that's again why we're so proud and excited to have you on the team, but also for the audience to understand that's why we're doing this, is to have that kind of global perspective and these type of professionals here with us.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah. So thank you
And
very much.
yeah, no. Last thing I just wanted to say is just think outside the box. You know, what you're told is not necessarily the only way. And that's why, you know, you guys, as well as what I'm trying to do over here as well, is that there are other alternatives, but we need to think ahead. You know, it's not working. Something's
Right.
not working. So
Another tagline, think
yeah,
outside the box.
we need to change it, and we need to change that paradigm together.
Absolutely. Spot on.
Everyone, thank you for listening. You should go and follow Helen on Facebook. Her Instagram handle is Orca_Swim Trainer. And of course, you can check out her website, which I've had up for the whole show, which is miniwateradventures.com. She's going to be represented at our All Things Aquatic event on September 20th, which is on St. Simon's Island. There are limited spaces, so if you're interested, reach out and we'll tell you how to register. But we pretty much have it everywhere on the internet. If you type in All Things Aquatic, Wes has made an event page, so you should be able to find the event that way. That would be the easiest, I think. And then she'll have a workshop in South Florida in November of this year. This is 2025, in case people are listening to this later. You don't want to miss any of the chances to work with her, so definitely find her page and get more information.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Any opportunity to talk about it, then it's a bonus. Win-win.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.